You've just been talking about the need for face-to-face a bureau in Ulverston, but why is funding needed when I understand that the place is manned by volunteers who aren't paid?
Okay. Well, certainly the advice is delivered to people, citizens who come into the Bureau seeking help. The advice is delivered by volunteers who have to undergo a fairly lengthy and rigorous training process. But that really isn't enough. I mean, you can't just have people delivering advice that could lead people into legal trouble or all sorts of difficulties. It also has to be carefully supervised by someone who is trained to carry out that job. And we have to be careful that the advice comes from reputable sources, and all of those things have to be monitored. So for every advice session there has to be a paid supervisor. You have to have people who are paid, because obviously if you want to keep standards up, then there's got to be some accountability, and it's difficult to arrange that with volunteers. I mean, also you've got to pay for premises. We have to pay about 9,500 for the office in Theatre Street, where the Ulverston Citizens Advice Bureau is currently located. You've got to have IT support. A lot of the information resources that we use to base our advice on come via computers. You've got to have a telephone system, you've got to have heating and lighting and so forth, and that's where the operating costs of the organisation come from. The fact that we have volunteers means that for every pound that's invested in the service, there's a multiplier effect, because you're only paying effectively for one supervisor and perhaps 4 or 5 volunteers who will be present on each session doing the hard work.
Yeah, that's what I wondered. When the office is open, there is always a supervisor present.
When the office is open for advice,
For advice, yes.
the office is open from 9 till 5 most days, but for most of that time it's a reception service only.
Right.
And there doesn't need to be a supervisor there for that.
Right. And you've got somebody supervising overall, but you've got some specialists as well, I believe.
Yes, there's a specialist benefit advisor who also works for the Macmillan Cancer Organisation, and her job is to help people who largely have benefit appeals, and for the Macmillan work, people who have cancer and find themselves in difficult financial circumstances because of the effect of their illness. And we also have debt workers, and again, debt cases are often very complex, and they require negotiations that often take weeks or months with multiple creditors. And the idea of it is to get an arrangement that the client can afford and that the creditors will accept. And as you can imagine, that takes some fairly tricky negotiation, and that's supervised by a specialist debt worker.
Now, we're a fairly small market town population, around about 12,000. How many people do you have coming in during a year, for instance, and where in practice do they come from?
They actually come from over quite a large area of South Lakeland. Obviously the bulk of them come from Furness, that is to say Ulverston, and between Ulverston and Barrow, though we get a lot from the other direction, from Greenodd and Kirby and Furness, and the outlying villages as you move towards Kendal.
Like Coniston and Ambleside?
Oh,
maybe?
Coniston and Ambleside we'd certainly get clients from. We're very definitely, they're in our catchment area, yes.
Mm. Right. Thank you. Clicky button.